Hey everyone, welcome back to How to Be a Poser. Today we're going to show the new kids what's up with the Hot Toys Iron Man Mark XLVII diecast 6-scale figure from Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's get started. All right, here he is, the Iron Man Mark XLVII diecast 6-scale figure by Hot Toys from Spider-Man Homecoming, still in his box exactly the way that he's going to come to you. And he's got so much great stuff. In addition to this slick paint job, we've got some really awesome blast effects, some cool switch out hands, a drone, I love drones so much, and this really irritated looking portrait of Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Can't wait to see what I can do with all this cool stuff, so let's get rolling. All right, here he is, at long last, the Iron Man Mark XLVII 6-scale figure by Hot Toys in all of its metallic armored glory. It is such the Iron Tech armor from the 1610 universe. I can't even begin to describe it. I was just so thrilled when the Ultimate Marvel comics were coming out, and now I've got a Hot Toys representation of an MCU interpretation of one of the characters in that film. So wrap your brain around that while I pose this figure. There is no flight stand that comes with the Iron Man Mark XLVII diecast. There is only a regular groin grabber support, as well as this really fancy pants flight stand for this drone, which is awesome, that was really one of the key scenes and a unique bit of Stark tech to be implemented into the show. So I think that for this pose, I'm going to implement this drone into the final image, the final pose, the final what have you. You have these guys right here, these little pocket drones, the little mini drones, and then they have this guy right here, which is the Mothership. So what happens is the Mothership spits out these little things, which in actuality are these things. Each one of these is one of these. So what you're looking at here is something that Hot Toys has been known to do in the past. They have created a forced perspective variant of this thing. It's meant to be much, much bigger than what we're seeing here. This is not a 6-scale Mothership drone. What we're going to do with this is, with this thing hanging out in the background, somewhere behind the final pose of the Iron Man, this thing is going to be hanging onto it by these little guys. These repulsor effects, which are subsequently going to be mounted onto the Mothership, just so. Look at how cool that is. Look at how awesome that is. Now, the Mothership drones have the ability to expand into these with these braces that come out and actually attach themselves to the ferry in the movie. Spoiler alert. But that actually gives it more pressure, fewer pounds per square inch, and kind of prevents it from causing damage to the structure. Spreads out the force, if you will. But when it's in flight, all these little arms are going to be back. It's not until they actually connect that they snap forward and provide that relief of pressure on the structure of the ship that we need. But we'll get to that in a minute. First thing we're going to do though, since we can't do a whole like a flight pose or anything, he's going to have to be on the ground. So my thought is that we need to come up with some sort of a ready posture. Like he's just getting ready to take off and he's got this thing flying to his aid. So in order to make that happen, first of all, this little guy right here looks like you can kind of get him to stand a little bit on his own. There are a couple of different apertures that you have to add onto it. But for the sake of this pose, I want it to be flying over Tony's shoulder, or having the appearance of being in the background over Tony's shoulder, while these little pocket drones fly past his shoulder, like he's sending them on a little mission. Now, in order to do that, you can see that at the top of this part of the stand, there is a slot meant to receive the groin grabber support. So what you can discern from that is that this is meant to go over the top of that stand, and the groin grabber support subsequently drops down into it like thus. Now, that thing's ready. This thing is going to need some work later on down the line. I think what I want to do is I want to have him just starting to blast off. Okay, so let's see if we can recreate that. He's going to be looking up, definitely, so at some point his head's going to be turned. Typically we would see Tony like put his legs together and put his hands straight down and then blast off. But that's not how superheroes do it in the comic books. I am a student of the comic books, actually not really a student, just a reader of the comic books. So let's kind of do something a little bit different. We're going to have him blasting off with his hands first in a bit more of an action, a call to action sort of pose is what I'll call it in this case. And to that end, let's go ahead and break out these repulsor blast effect hands. See how cool those are? Also really cool for photography, I might add. Hopefully I get an opportunity to photograph this figure before the end of the day. So I think that what I want to do is just have him like he's taking a step forward and getting ready to blast off. So I'm just going to have his arms coming back just a little bit. This leg I think I want to come forward. And looks like it's going to collide there. You can see it's kind of colliding there with the armor, so lift that up just to alleviate that. And you don't want to scratch that paint because it is gorgeous, gorgeous paint. And then once you've got that in sort of a position where you think it'll look cool, you can bring it back if you choose. I'm going to bring this leg back. All right, so I'm just going to gradually just kind of keep inching away at these legs until I have what I think is the right angle for what I'm trying to achieve here. You can see that I've got his hips kind of swayed a little bit. I think that I have his head actually a little tilted a little too far back. Now I want to check this neck. And yes, the neck does turn. So pay attention to that. When you have the multiple jointed neck and head being separate, then work that neck in conjunction with the head so that it doesn't look unnatural. It doesn't have to be fully in line, but even if you can turn it just a little bit to the left as I'm doing here, then you can also just kind of create more of an illusion of that curve being a natural thing in the Iron Man armor. Now I'm just going to move 20 around here, check where his head is there. See how there's a little bit of a gap between the neck and the head. I'm going to move that forward because by doing so I apply more action, like he's really leaning into the action that he's about to perform. In this case, launching this awesome Iron Man armor up into the sky to assist his drone. So I'm going to move the leg a little bit further forward and get him in a bit of a deeper stance. See how that's already looking better? And so you can see kind of what I'm doing here as I turn it to look at the camera. But the intent is that he's activating his stabilizers first before hitting his repulsor boots. And by doing so, he's sort of making sure that he's stabilized. Or we don't even know it. His repulsor boots are probably already firing. You just can't actually see the effects because he hasn't quite left the ground yet. Now, we're going to get him on the stand. And once we do that, we can see how it's actually going to work. One of the things that I kind of want to do is when I rotate him this way, you can see that the back of his foot is hanging off the back of the stand. Now that's not undesirable. In fact, it creates an opportunity. So what I can do here then is bend this leg just a little bit more and then bend the toe of the boot to compensate, like he's just lifting his foot off, like he's really getting ready to lean into it, getting ready to launch. Speaking of leaning into it, I kind of want to lean him a little bit further into this action by leaning his waist and his whole body forward a little bit and rely on the groin grabber support to keep him there. So let's just go ahead and move that up just a touch. And then as we're lowering it down, kind of use your finger to get in there and separate it. See how I did that? So now you've got one piece of the groin grabber support grabbing Iron Man's, well, crotch, let's face it. And I think that's got Iron Man. Now to wrap this up, what I want to do is I want to bring in the drone. So you'll need this armature support and the drone itself, the mothership as I like to call it. You're going to attach the mothership armature to the mothership there at the bottom like so. So you rotate your armature around until you have the drone where you want it to be. And then you just drop him down on top of this stand. See how I did that? Now, not really where we want it to be, I think, so I'm just going to play. I'm going to come back here where you can see it, and I'm going to play with this flexible flight stand, which Hot Toys really does an amazing job with those things, and I'm going to bring it further back. And I'll show you in a second here just how far back I'm going to take that. See that? So I'm creating the illusion of more depth using the power of force perspective. All right, so I've got it further back over him than it was before. Now, time to bring in these guys, and I'm just going to check to be sure that these two things are identical, and I think that they are. Yeah, the sculpts on these things seem to be identical, so that makes your task here easier. I think I also want this thing pointing up just a little bit more. And the reason for that is there's some weight to these bits, and I just don't want them to weigh the drone down so much that it falls apart. So there's one that's going to be coming out this way. Once you get that attached, you can attach the drone. Boom. Drop it in there. So I'm just going to put it right here, more towards the middle. And I'm going to rotate it so that it's kind of getting ready to fly over Tony's head. And now that I've got that in place, these pocket drones, the little tiny guys, are much smaller than, just adjust this just a bit. I just kind of want a little bit more diversity in their direction. Okay, so we've got two drones, they're blasting out of the mothership, and I think my next step is going to be to spin the mothership ever so slightly and tilt it. And that provides just a little bit more action. And when you're looking at it head on, it just looks a little bit more realistic. And I think that's got it. I love this thing. All right, and there it is. The cameo appearance of Tony Stark while wearing this armor in Spider-Man Homecoming is more than just a token nod to the IronTech armor of Earth 1610. Tony is the personification of the man that Peter aspires to be, and the closest thing to a father figure that Peter has. With that in mind, I think a solid hero pose represents this figure best. But if a hero pose isn't your jam, this pose or something like it makes for a nice blend between hero pose and action pose.
Did you enjoy that video? Be sure to subscribe by hitting the S icon on your screen and click the bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. If you'd like more info on the items featured in this video, click the link provided under product info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.